Hey folks, my name is Kendall Matthews. I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing at AppointmentPlus. And one of the great things that we do is we take all the questions that you have and we look at those and say, what can we answer?
Yes.
And one of the great things that we received this past week is a lot about our enterprise sales process. And even more so than that, what I was able to find out from these questions is there's a lot of integration and implementation questions that they had this week. So what I did was I said, who in our enterprise sales team is a great person to ask some of these technical questions that a lot of people have? And I have a great co-host, is John Christley.
Hello.
Hey. And so John, how long have you been here at Appointment Plus?
Coming up on 2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So besides shaving your head every day, what do you do?
Keeping it shiny. Outside of work, I kind of have a second life. I'm a ultra distance trail marathoner, so do a lot of trail running outside of work. And
Fun.
Yeah.
Is there any exciting place that you've really ran 100 miles?
I did run 100 miles back here on the McDowells last year, and getting ready to do that again in a few weeks.
Right.
But my favorite places have been either the Grand Canyon or Colorado.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. That's something that I'm never going to do. It's like the farthest I'm going to run is...
Never say never.
Yeah, that is true. I will never run further than 100 yards, and that's from my house over to Target to get a bag of Skittles.
There you go.
So, that's
something.
That's an emergency sometimes.
Yes.
Well, let's get to these questions that folks ask. And so let's go ahead and... So the first one is, how does Appointment Plus help clients determine if they are an enterprise account?
That's a good question. So what we do typically is I team up with our enterprise accounts rep, and early in the process we try and ask as many questions as possible. So when we are qualifying this opportunity, we're trying to determine if the more than based on volume, if the needs come up that are speaking to integrations. Okay. So somebody's got a back office solution, they've got an ERP system, or these kind of acronyms come up like CRM, WMS, those kind of platforms. And since they're talking and having an appointment-based conversation with us, we try and qualify what is the use case that is expected from a WMS to our system.
So what's the WMS?
It's the warehouse management system.
Okay, warehouse management system.
Yes, so a lot of the logistics.
Logistics?
Yes,
okay.
When they're bringing in trucks for deliveries, a lot of the carriers will want to schedule those deliveries with the warehouses, and we have to determine what is our role in this process. Since sometimes we're perceived as just a scheduler, we can do a lot more. Okay. So that's when the integration discussion comes up.
Gotcha.
So what types of information do we need to integrate into our system, whether it's an order number, whether it's what kind of services they might be pulling in to the facility, what kind of schedules do they need to adhere to? So is the operation a 24-hour operation, or is it an 8 to 5 kind of operation? Those are all things that we can handle in our system, but oftentimes we complement the process by bringing over valid PO as an example.
Gotcha.
So the carrier can't come in unless they've got a valid PO. So, yeah,
and that's a lot of rules based inside their process. If you can't do this and this or this other thing.
Yes.
So I think that goes right in line with the question of, so we talked about the integrations and adding rules that we talked about for specific use cases. So how do you specifically go through that requirement gathering? What are some of the things that you do to make sure we're getting the best type of information so we can know if we're a good fit or not?
Great question again. I think that sometimes what we rely on is the documentation that enterprise organizations have already flushed out. So use cases that are drawn up in specific scenarios are the best situation for us, because it portrays to us the journey that the user is going to take between the time they see an interface for scheduling to the time that they complete that process and get their notifications.
Okay.
So the most documented situations are the best for us, but when there's not documentation, what we try to do is help ask the questions. We take a lot of notes, we format those notes, and we also produce a lot of times artifacts that we will send back to our enterprise prospects so that we know we're on the same page in understanding their business.
So how long does that process take?
Oftentimes we can get that done in a matter of a couple to 3 weeks. It's not a lengthy 30, 60, 90-day process unless the systems that they are relying on to integrate with us, if the resources there aren't available, that's usually what causes some delays. But generally, we can get everything done in a couple weeks.
Right, so the scheduling of their resources makes sure they've been on the top.
Yes.
Gotcha.
When we have all hands on deck, that's the
Yes.
perfect scenario.
Perfect. Another question people sent in is, do customers receive a demo or proof of concept through the sales process, or what are some activities that a client can expect?
Yeah, that's another scenario that we face on a daily basis almost, because we get new leads that come in. Certainly the first thing that might come out of a conversation is, can we just take a quick look at your system? We do, typically the short answer is we could, but we want to understand the business better so that we can demonstrate our capabilities that match their requirements.
Gotcha.
Rather than just a show up and throw up kind of demo. So,
Yes. Like, what is your specific needs, and making sure that we tie into some of those?
yes.
Okay.
And we go as far as tailoring. We'll put in their terminology so that it resonates with them. We will oftentimes add sample data so that when we schedule appointments and we bring these up during the demonstration, they can see their data essentially.
Gotcha.
So it helps illustrate the scenario a little bit better.
So it's really a lot clearer when you're doing the proof of concept of what it looks like in my language.
Yes.
And then when you're presenting that information, is all right, I understand that kind of user flow.
Yes.
So that's been very helpful in your process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Another question they received, and I only have about 2 more. So
Okay.
I know you have
All
to get
right.
back and do the things that you have to do.
All
so,
right.
Run 100 miles this
Yeah,
afternoon.
not a problem.
When requirements are complete, and I know that's a big one, what is the next step or steps to finish a project?
Well, so a couple things can happen. When requirements are complete, they're usually asking for us to present the proposal of what the services may entail. So is this a 30-day services implementation, or is it a 3-month to a 12-month implementation? Once we've gotten all the requirements on the table and our teams here understand what those are, then oftentimes we will, as a team, meet internally. We'll try and communicate the needs of the prospect and the opportunity in a way that they feel like they have a clear understanding of what the implementation entails. Is it development entirely by us as an organization, or are we co-developing with our prospects? Are we relying on a third party? Sometimes enterprise customers have their third parties they work with as well. So those are typically the activities, and then we set a kickoff date and we try and get our implementation teams on the ready, and they take over from that standpoint.
Okay. Then you talk about the implementation team.
Yes.
So that's a great segue to this. Did you read these questions beforehand? When these people send them in?
I'm not sure.
This is not staged. These are people who actually send in this information. Oh, hi, Iris. No, Iris.
Speaking of
I
implementation,
know, she just walked by. We should
Yes.
have had her in this video.
yes.
Oh, we'll get her next time. So between before it goes over to Iris,
Yes.
and you just saw one of the teams that are a part of that process. What type of information does Iris and her team need for implementation?
One of that's really important is the type of environment that they'll need to set up and design.
Okay.
So this feeds into operational teams as well, because being a SaaS model, we have our universe that we support of our general customer base, and then we have our enterprise customers who really need the performance capabilities and they need dedicated environments. So she's most familiar with how do we get those types of elements communicated to them so that they can set up the servers and the infrastructure and all of that, in addition to all the requirements that I've gathered during the pre-sales process.
Gotcha.
They put those two things together. She formulates an implementation plan, puts together sort of the project team, and we do this huge kickoff, and it's formal at that point, and she takes over. And I sometimes come in to offer my support if there's clarity that needs to be provided. Sometimes it happens.
And that's a good point about clarity. So in your role, what are some of the things that you try to help an individual or a business when they're trying to see if this is a good fit? What do you say, well, why don't you avoid this or do this?
That's a great question. Oftentimes our customers are under deadlines. They're under extreme pressure to deliver an online scheduling solution. And so a lot of times, even though we've gathered all the requirements, it's very helpful to talk about a phased implementation.
Okay.
So we help our clients understand that, yes, we can do everything, but maybe phase one is going to consist of A, B, and C. And then maybe phase two is H, I, and J, and then so forth. The other thing is that often comes up is clarity on the specifics of the workflow. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is, let's say that we're integrating with a staffing solution, and the staff that we're scheduling services for, they aren't dedicated or they aren't known. So oftentimes they'll come back and they'll talk to me about, well, was there a scenario where we talked about maybe scheduling into a general calendar versus a dedicated staff member? And those conversations often add some color and some visibility to the situation.
Right.
It doesn't derail the project. Sometimes those are questions that are best fielded internally versus calling the customer back and saying, hey, we had a conversation 2 weeks ago.
Right.
What was that thing you said? And they're so busy, they don't even remember.
Right.
So that's where good note-taking and requirements documentations come into play.
As you're talking, and of course, good note-taking and writing those things down, what came to my mind is, if someone came to you, what are the 2 questions that you wish they would always come with that you can say, all right, do these 2 things, and then we will be golden?
2 things. I would say, what is the core strength of your solution? And are you guys just a scheduler, or are you guys sort of this huge development platform where our company can leverage all kinds of different objects in your system and so forth? Because to me, it would identify to me that they understand our role in the overall process. That the old models of hub and spoke, we're just a spoke on this model. We're really not the center of the universe or the hub that some companies think we are. So the second piece is we come back with a question and we ask them, well, what do you think of when you think of scheduling? When you think of scheduling, do you assume that our system is going to store POs, staff schedules to the degree that we know everything about this staff person more than name, rank, and serial number? Things like, when are they going to be hired on? All of these sort of elements that really don't need to reside in our system. Those are kind of things that we sort of volley back and forth, and we try to determine that fit. Gotcha. So it's the type of system and sort of the integration points or the responsibilities of our system. We're a perfect scheduling engine, but we're not really the system to store a whole bunch of orders or things like that.
Yeah, we're not holding a bunch of orders, but holding a whole bunch of appointments.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's one of the great things about John is he can get to the nitty-gritty of how we can help you with on any appointment basis. This is what his team does. every single day and work with our implementation team. So folks, if you have any questions, remember, go on any of our social platforms, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and make sure that you ask these questions. But more importantly, John, I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
My name is Kendall Matthews, and keep scheduling, and we'll talk to you soon.